This is Lynn Woolley, and you're listening to the Vic Feazell Show podcast. When I was at WFAA, we used to have newsroom discussions, and I wasn't all that political then. I was very interested in putting news on the air without a political persuasion. I hadn't really developed conservatism as a way of life at that point. But we talked about a misdemeanor murder. You know what a misdemeanor murder is?
Yeah.
That was a murder in South Dallas and nobody gave a crap about.
Right.
Some black guy kills some other black guy. Why worry about that?
Misdemeanor murder.
And,
I remember that.
Here I am at the ripe old age of 69 and a half. And that
Bill and Ted's favorite number.
Yes.
69.
Bill and Ted's favorite number. And, you realize at the time I thought, well, wait a minute. I was a kid. I was 21 or 22 in those days, and I'm thinking that doesn't sound right. You got to prosecute a murder, but so many in the establishment then they'd prosecute a murder in Highland Park, but not in South Oak Cliff.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was a sad situation. I even wrote a column a few years ago called "Let's Fix the Death Penalty," where I talked about. I don't know if you want me to mention the judge. He's long dead, but
I don't care.
I went to Austin. His last name was Roberts. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I went to Austin to cover the Cherie trial. Cherie was a lady who had nightclubs in Temple where you could sit and get a lap dance, or she might have a snake around her neck or something like that. And the city took her to court, and the judge slept through the trial. Now, it's one of those things where if you're appointed a lawyer, and the big high-priced lawyers, I doubt if Mark Garrigus or Racehorse Haynes, who I used to call Quarter Horse Haynes when I was doing a radio show, I doubt if those guys got appointed as court-appointed attorneys very much because they were too powerful,
Oh, yeah, right.
But you get some kid out of law school, and he's not really wanting to defend this guy. It's not like it is on TV, like the Good Wife crusades for this guy who's wrongly accused.
No. So
you get a quote-unquote misdemeanor murder, and the lawyer isn't going to work very hard. The judge
most lawyers
are
going to want to plead it, no matter what.
And
we
then
got
you
to plead
sentence
this.
the guy to death.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not right. And I wrote a long column about that and said, if we want to do this, we're going to have to have a better system of providing an attorney, because under our Constitution, everybody, whether your name is Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, or Leroy, Jones over here in South Oak Cliff, everybody gets to face your accuser. Everybody gets to present the evidence. Everybody gets to go through discovery.
Yeah, the system is really broken from the bail system all the way up through the court-appointed system. They don't pay these lawyers enough. It becomes a sausage grinder.
Yep.
What we need is a public defender office, but if you have a public defender office, that takes tax money, and it's going to have to be funded at least up to maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of what the DA's office is funded.
But there are some sacrifices that we make monetarily in a country like the United States to ensure fairness. And,
That's
I'm
true.
one of those people that believes, and you may disagree or not, I'm one of those people that has lived through a couple of different things. I was born in late 1949, so I was a toddler in the early 50s. I still remember Separate but Equal. The greatest football player, and there's been a lot of good ones. Bobby Dillon just passed away last week. He's a member of the Texas Longhorn Hall of Fame. He's also a member of the Green Bay Packer Hall of Fame, one of the greatest football players ever to come out of Texas. And he's from Temple, Texas, but probably the greatest football player to come out of Temple, Texas is Joe Green. Mean Joe Green. Do you realize he was not a Temple Wildcat because he was not allowed to go to Temple High School?
I know. Isn't that awful?
And to think that happened in my lifetime, it's embarrassing and it's a shame.
You got to put everything in context.
I happen to think that we have made incredible progress. I can't say that all
society had been pulling away from that model for thousands of years, and it was a struggle there for a while, and it's still a struggle, but it's going to be better.
Well, I think it's in pretty decent shape right now.
Best time in the history of the world.
Yeah, it really is. We're in a golden age in a lot of things.
Yes,
right now.
we are.
I feel so fortunate to be born in America, to be born in Texas.
Yes.
To have the parents I had who were jewels.
Me too.
To be able to have the opportunities. My father was a school custodian. My mother sold Avon, and yet they got me through college.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a degree. I don't know. It's not from a well-known big university, but I have a degree. Is the University of Texas a big-name, well-known university? I don't know.
I don't know. I think I've heard of them.
Anyway, I still like the football team.
Yeah.
Although I don't think much of the college anymore.
Uh-huh.
But, I just believe that in America today, everybody has a pretty good shot if you're physically able and you're not mentally impaired and you've got some drive. I think you can go out and do pretty much anything. If I can write a book and get it published, and I've written 4 that are published and 2 that are unpublished, which I'm going to sell you the rights to after the show. But was that a yes or
yeah,
no?
Sure.
Okay. All right, great.
Oh, yeah.
All right, great. I just think I think we still
I'm up for anything, dude.
I think we
Let's
still
talk about it.
have a problem though with some of those court-appointed systems.
No kidding.
And I think we do to this day.
I agree with you.
So, Pauken, to get back to the main subject. So I guess from what you're telling me today, I'm the guy that got him up here and on your case, and he's the guy that brought Charles Duncan in. And I'm thinking now I need to pay you back for lunch. I don't know.
You know what? If it weren't for you, Lynn, we wouldn't be in the Guinness Book of World Records. It was a crazy-ass ride, but holy cow, we held on and we made it.
But it worked out.
It worked out.
You know, of all the iconic images in Waco, Texas, folks, so let me just say that I think one of the iconic images is ATF agents shooting at and tanks going in to the Branch Davidians.
I agree.
I think that's one.
Yes.
Right now, one of the, of course, the old iconic image is the Suspension Bridge.
Yes.
Another one is the silos downtown now.
Of course.
Have been made Waco
Yes.
so famous
Yes.
and made it into a tourist site.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to put up there Vic Feazell being hauled away in handcuffs and chains. I mean, I can't get that out of my head ever. That's
You know
just
what's
incredible.
going on here, and I'll still be proven right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Exactly. You never, ever gave up. I got weekly, if not daily, calls from your then wife.
Yeah, Bernie. Yeah.
And I was completely up to date on everything going on. I clipped out everything. And when it came time to write my book, that's how I did it. I had everything I'd ever read about it, plus the stuff that I knew from personal experience. And so that's why the chapter seems like a fairly complete story. I had about everything in front of me.
It's the best thumbnail sketch of the story that's ever been written. And I really appreciate it. And I tell you, over the years, I bet I've bought 120 of them and handed them out like calling cards.
I
maybe
know.
more.
You called me one
gave me
time and
one.
ordered a case of them. I remember.
Yeah, when I first started working for you, Vic,
Yeah.
you gave me that.
I did. Jonathan's been with me since he was 19 years old. That's what, 14 years?
Yep.
Yeah. And he's been my archivist.
Yeah.
All those records, all that crap I had just thrown in boxes. He's the one that organized it and then later scanned it, got it digitized. Yeah.
I wrote this book, The Last Great Days of Radio, on a computer with a green screen.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, no.
And I wrote it in something called Professional Write, which you couldn't do anything in Professional Write, like one font, and you could save it and print it. And when I sent this into the publisher, I sent it in ASCII format.
Wow.
And so that's...
I wrote Rhino, Sharks, and Unicorns on an iPad while I was flying on airplanes.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, gosh.
I like that
Hey.
better.
Well, you know what? When you were talking a while ago, it made me think, Billy Joe Shaver lives in Waco. The great, you talking about, you love
Songwriter,
music.
sure.
Yeah, singer, songwriter, love Billy Joe Shaver. And we were talking about Townes Van Zandt earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love talking about music.
I do too.
You get me started on music.
But Billy Joe has a line in a song that makes me think about me and you, and it's, I've been around this world a long time, mister. I got a thing or two to say. I love Billy Joe Shaver.
Well, there's 2 parts to writing a song. You got to have a memorable melody that'll stick in people's heads, and you got to have some great lyrics that touch their hearts.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's good with both.
Yeah, he
He
really
really
is.
is. I love that guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Some strong characters in this story. Maddox, Gary Richardson, some real strong characters.
Well, it was interesting because I thought you'd lose. And it wasn't because I didn't have faith in you. It was because I'm not a lawyer, even though I've watched a lot of Perry Mason, as I said earlier. But I have covered so many cases in so many different venues in different counties, and a public figure has chances are slim to none.
Slim to none.
And when you won that case, I just went bat crazy. I mean, this. I said to my then wife, "This is absolutely amazing." And then we moved I'd bought Cannon out, and we moved our ad agency to Austin. And you had moved there, out close to the Baptist church that was so famous,
River Bend.
River Bend, right.
And Austin Country Club. Yeah.
River Bend,
I
right
was
there
a
by the
member of
country
both
club.
back then.
Went over to your house, and you were in the process. I remember you had a koi pond out in the backyard.
Yeah.
And I remember that you spent your days going to those auctions and buying all that artwork. And I thought, dang,
Yeah.
man, he went through a lot, but
Back
he
then
came
I
out
had
okay.
Back then I had more money than good sense. It was shortly after that the IRS, on the urging of some Belo and other political enemies, changed the tax code, and they made it retroactive. And
Isn't that an ex post facto law?
I appealed that all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States.
And lost?
Yes.
So you had to pay your taxes on it.
Yeah, and that broke me, man. I had to sell everything because it was 5 years after the fact. So
Good Lord.
yeah, I got out of my house. That was about it.
And that was Jerry Gray's former house, or was he your neighbor?
No, he was my neighbor.
Yeah.
Jerry Gray was my neighbor.
Houston
Great guy.
Oilers, I think.
Houston Oilers, yeah. I liked him. But yeah, I got out of it with a house and some money. I was able. That's when I went back into the law practice and reopened the law practice shortly after that. And I'm glad I did. I've done pretty good with the law practice too. So it's all good.
And you wrote a
But-
novel.
Yeah, and I wrote that novel. But yeah, I won that case 11-1 with the U.S. Tax Court. All 12 judges weighed in on it. So then the government appealed to the Fifth Circuit. With the Fifth Circuit, I lost 2-1. So we went to the Supreme Court. And, man, we were quoting ex post facto. We were quoting Oliver Wendell Holmes, the power to tax is the power to destroy. I mean,
Ex post facto is in the Constitution.
it is. It
How
is.
in the world? I mean,
I know.
you want to do a show sometime on the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So
Some of the ignoramus things they do, and they're supposed to be the
kidding.
9 best.
I know.
Best
They're the ones who've
justices
come
in
out
the
now
world.
and said that corporations are people, and giving corporations more rights than what people have. But anyway,
Oh, that's.
I lacked one vote. Them having enough votes for them to take it up. They wouldn't take it up, so they never wrote on it. So the Fifth Circuit opinion stood. The Fifth Circuit opinion was, yeah, we agree, ex post facto, you can't do that on criminal laws.
Yeah.
But the IRS, yeah, they can do it as long as they don't go back more than the statute of limitations, which I think was like 7 years. And they went back 5 years and caught me up.
Yeah, you're talking about Citizens United. I mean, I always get to the Roe v. Wade is the one I don't get. Roe v. Wade is the law of the land.
Yeah.
And yet the Supreme Court is barred by the Constitution from making law. They should have sent it back to the states.
Yeah, that's a big debate right now. Yeah. That's one I just never chime in on.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've written so many columns on that.
I know you have. I've read some of them, and they're well reasoned, and I can see your point of view. Yet I see other people's point of view too. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad. I go home, I don't turn on the TV, and I sit somewhere in the house or in the backyard and pretend I'm Gandhi. And just let the world float by. You know, it's all good, and I don't need to know what's going on out there. And it all seems to work out. Now, if everybody did like me, that might be a problem. But I have paid my dues. Now, I'll still go vote. I'll get myself informed enough to go vote. And I'll still give blood and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as getting really involved, no, I'm leaving that for the younger people now.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way in a lot of ways too. I'd run for office, except for the fact that you pretty much have to be a millionaire now to do that.
You do.
I have the name identification, but you have to be a millionaire and you have to have a fire in the belly. So I'm 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
I don't have the fire in the belly. On my Sunday afternoon, I'm not going to be knocking on doors.
I had some people trying to get me to run for judge, but a couple things go against that. Number one, and I think this ought to be unconstitutional, but it's in our Texas Constitution. Mandatory retirement age for judges, 72.
Mm-hmm.
72 is the new 40, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to have that clip pulled for future reference, please.
Yeah. And also, God, I just don't think I could have to show up the same place every day at the same time. People know what time I'm clocking in.
Vic,
everybody want me to decide in their favor.
You've got a beautiful law office.
Yeah.
You've got a nice practice.
I'm going to do this forever.
You have a podcast. You're having a good time.
Yeah.
Why would you want to spoil that?
And I want you to get your podcast going.
We'll try it.
I will subscribe to your podcast, Lynn. I want all my listeners to subscribe to your podcast. I'd like for you to read this chapter into your podcast. Read some of the other stuff you were talking about into your podcast, because I'm writing a book about this. And I'm going to have a channel that's just the book that I'm going to read.
Well, the weird thing with me is I'm not totally sure what I want to be when I grow up.
That's good.
I love doing radio talk. It is a passion of mine. I also love playing music. I think I'm better at writing songs than performing them. I think I'm passable at performing them. I think I'm a decent songwriter, but I'm in an era where it's hard to do anything with them. And so we discussed that a little bit at lunch today. And I love writing fiction. I've written 2 novels. I mentioned 2 books that are not published. They're both science fiction novels. They just sit there on my hard drive.
I love your writing.
And I like to write short stories. And, I don't know. I just like to do a lot of different things. I think you're the same way.
I'm the same way. I'm a Renaissance man.
But you got to have something paying the bills,
You do. Yeah. I have some really good people that work for me, thank God. And they just kind of keep me from messing up.
And we're even, my significant other and I are now refinishing old antique furniture.
That's good.
Doing pretty well with it.
I saw some cool photos of that.
Yeah,
That's on a website somewhere people could go buy them.
Well, it's on my Facebook page.
Okay.
But it's, you go to my Facebook page, you can find it. But it's fun, it's creative, it's an outlet.
So your Facebook page is Lynn Woolley?
Lynn W. Woolley.
Lynn W. Woolley.
Yeah, believe it or not, there's other people with that name.
And Woolley's a little different to spell. It's 2 L's and 2 O's. 2 O's and 2 L's.
Yeah, Woolley. But Google me, I'm not hard to find. If you just Google Lynn Woolley, I am all over the place. You'll get 1,000 hits. I'll tell you something. This piece I wrote, it was entitled Before Obama, Before Columbine, America Had Serial Killers. Or America Had Mass Killers, I can't remember. It's still up on WB Daily, and you will be shocked. And I only had a portion of them. But you will be shocked. I wrote 5 lines on each one.
Okay.
All the way going back to school shootings and killings as far back as the 40s and 50s.
Oh, yeah.
That people don't remember anymore.
And serial killers back that far, too, that we knew about. Ed Gein, he's way back there. When was he, 50s?
Well, the first serial killer in American history that people really talk about was a guy, I'm trying to think, give me a second, I'll think of his real name. He had a pseudonym, H.H. Holmes. And Holmes would, this was at the Chicago World's Fair, I believe it was in the 1800s. And he would lure people into his house there near the fair and take them into the basement and torture them and murder them.
Yeah,
and it goes all the way up. Remember, we had a serial killing in Houston in the 70s. Elmer Wayne Henley and that bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we had George Hennard right over in Killeen at the Luby's cafeteria. We had the Tower shooter, Charles Whitman.
Yeah, Whitman, he was the first like that, mass shooter.
Yeah. And I want to tell you something. I included Janet Reno in my list.
Good for you. That's kind of a stretch because her finger wasn't on the trigger, but I agree with you.
Call in the troops from Fort Hood on a local religious cult that they could have picked him up when he went out to shop for groceries.
In the territory of Arizona, when they were having trouble with the Cowboys, that was the name of their street gang. Those rustling cattle. Mm-hmm. We were being threatened with a Mexican invasion because they were crossing the border, killing Mexican citizens, stealing cattle, and all of that. And all they had in Arizona was poor old Wyatt Earp and his brothers and Doc Holliday trying to hold some of that down. And they kept appealing to the United States government. We're going to be invaded. We're going to be invaded if you don't do something. And because of that posse comitatus law that had been passed, and that is still the law.
You can't. Well, Posse Comitatus didn't stop her though.
No, it didn't. It stopped them from going and helping in Arizona.
Yeah.
Which is why ultimately the OK Corral happened and a lot of that. And you know how it really got settled down? The Mexicans in Sonora, the governor there, dressed up a bunch of Mexican soldiers like cowboys, and they came over into Arizona, found them camping in a canyon, and blew their asses away.
Wow.
And that's what did it. And then snuck back, and our president, Arthur, at the time, because I believe Mr. Garfield had already been assassinated.
Yes, by Gitto.
Gitto,
Charles
Gitto, who Garfield was going to appoint to an ambassadorship, but he didn't like it.
McKinley, but I cannot pronounce the name.
Really?
Not pronounceable.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah. But Chester Arthur, he was so happy that was taken care of, that he said, leave Mexico alone. Leave them alone. If they want to do it again, let them do it again. That was one incursion across the border. Mm-hmm. That was okay. They helped us with a problem there.
But I'm not interviewing you, but it's kind of would be kind of fun to do it. I'd like to ask you how you after you got to Austin, you had your deal with the IRS, you were able to keep your house, and then you decided Austin is too big, and you put a piece in the back of your novel that said, "Don't come here, you won't like it."
Yes, I did. And after that, I got to where I just didn't like it anymore because the traffic got so bad. The only thing I miss about Austin is some of the restaurants. But man, sometimes we would have a reservation at a restaurant. We'd start heading to it and miss our reservation because of traffic. So, in Waco, you have to get used to barbecue and Mexican food on every corner, and not a lot of vegetables. But I love it here, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm afraid I brought some of the traffic with me.
Austin had the West Lynn Cafe.
Yes.
It had Mother's.
Yeah.
It had, what's that place right across the street from Mother's on Duval Street? It had the big fork with the fish, and they could change the food.
Yeah, I remember that.
Hyde Park Grill.
Yeah.
Those were just great places. I ate my first steamed avocado at Hyde Park Grill.
Yeah. It was wonderful down there. And the Magnolia Cafe. And
the Magnolia Cafe went out of business. That's where I had my first eggplant.
I did not know they went out of business.
I don't think they're there anymore.
Oh,
they're on Lamar and about
30th
Street or something.
And also over on, was it 5th Street turns into after it crosses Mopac? Lakeshore or something like that. Lake something.
Well, you got the Hula Hut down there and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's down by that.
Even though we were lamenting the closing of Threadgill's downtown, there's still a Threadgill's open out on Lamar.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you get the same food there.
Okay.
Old service station.
Well, that's the one where Janis Joplin performed.
There is, and there's I have a tenuous connection to everybody that ever lived, I think, and my connection to Threadgill's, named after, of course, Kenneth Threadgill. When I was at UT, I went there as a junior. I graduated from Temple Junior College at the time, and looking around for a roommate, found one. He didn't get into the college, so I had to find another one really quick, and ran into a guy named Robert Malsbury, and he was from Temple High School, and we had a couple of friends that were going to room in a little place called the College Courts right off campus, which we could do since we were going in as juniors. Well, Malsbury's grades were fine, and we got in, and he unloaded a guitar that first night, and I unloaded a guitar. And
wow!
We played over at Dobie Mall, second level. There was a pub. There was a restaurant called The Place, catty-cornered to a pub called The Other Place. We played there.
That.
We auditioned there, and they hired us every Tuesday and Friday the whole time I was at UT. We played at The Other Place. And when we graduated and we left, Kenneth Davis, he's a football player. Kenneth Threadgill replaced us.
Oh, my goodness.
Kenneth Threadgill and Cotton Collins as fiddler and all. I'll never forget, I watched them one night. And then I moved to Dallas to WFAA.
Remember the Cactus Cafe? Right there on campus?
Yeah. Well, wait. That was in the Student Union building.
Yeah, that was in the Student Union.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Still there.
I used to go pay $10 to listen to Townes Van Zandt play in there to an audience of 30.
Those other two guys that were from Temple, One of them went on to be a major cabinet maker and carpenter and all that, and made custom cabinets and all. The other one was Rex Davis, who's now an appeals court judge.
I'll be damned, I know Rex.
Right here in Waco.
Yeah, we sat at the same table last
One of my
month.
best friends of all time.
Yeah, well, good. I'll tell Rex you were on our podcast. Get him to subscribe. Leave us a review.
This is Lynn Woolley, and thank you for listening to the Vic Feazell Show podcast. You can find out more on my website, www.wbdaily.com. You can find my books for purchase on Amazon.com.
This is Texas singer-songwriter Brian Burns, and I've been to Waco, Hico, Hondo, Navasota, Winsboro, Jacksboro, Hillsboro, Santa Rosa, Austin, Houston, Galveston, Texarkana, Frisco, Buffalo, Conroe, Corsicana, and that's just in the last week. Keep a safe pace, folks. Relax and drive laid back, because Texas is a laid-back place. And if you've been in a car wreck, call Vic Feazell at 877-WITH-VIC.